A reliable source told us today that Canon's working on some surprise lenses. Lenses that we haven't seen before. This is reminiscent of what Sigma CEO Kazuto Yamaki said last December.
Is a telephoto lens that have never existed before.
Really?
Yes.
And Sigma did end up releasing the 300 to 600 millimeter f4. Truly a lens like nothing ever they've made before. So what exactly is Canon working on? Is it a prime, telephoto, zoom, or something else? Well, I'll break it down for you in just a moment. But if you're serious about staying up to date on the latest camera gear, make sure to subscribe. It helps this channel grow, and it keeps you in the loop. Since early 2024, it's been getting much more difficult to get reliable leaks coming out of Canon. But that hasn't stopped us from hitting the phones. And earlier today, one of our sources, a reliable known source, was able to hit a little bit of pay dirt. There really isn't a whole lot to share with you at the moment, nothing related to bodies. The only hint that I was able to glean is that the next several lenses will surprise people. And obviously, I did try to press further. I tried to get more information, and I was essentially told that I was lucky to get what I did get. So, some surprise lenses. What does that mean exactly? Well, I've been digging through the Japanese patent application office dumpster to see if I could glean some ideas as to what we could realistically expect to see from Canon. And boy, I can tell you, there's some really strange ones and some, well, highly probable ones. So let's go ahead and take a look at the possibilities, and then I'll give you my thoughts on which ones I think are most likely. Canon surprised us in 2023 with the RF 200 to 800 millimeter f6.3 to 9, a super telephoto lens that's, well, considering the range, is a very affordable price. So much so that it's being used by pros in the field. Although, just a word of caution, it's not built like an L series, so definitely be careful. Also in 2023, at the same time as the 200 to 800 millimeter, Canon surprised us with their first power zoom lens, the 24 to 105 f2.8. It gave us an aperture ring, silent operation, and quasi-parfocal zooming. And then in 2024, Canon surprised us with a series of VCM 1.4 primes. So how could Canon possibly surprise us here in 2025? And notice what my source said here. The next lenses will surprise people. And that's a plural. We're looking at least two in this case. And I've got a couple of possibilities. So let's turn to our first patent application for what I consider to be one of the most bizarro. Actually, no, it's not one of the most bizarro, but it's pretty bold. In Japanese patent application, JP 2024 111453, Canon proposed a 200 to 1000 millimeter. Yep, that's right. But considering how big the 200 to 800 millimeter is, this 200 to 800 millimeter is, it seems rather unlikely that Canon would also release a 200 to 1000. And to quote the words, or to quote Monty Python,
I noticed a tendency for this program to get rather silly. Now, I do my best to keep things moving along, but I'm not having things getting silly.
And look, I agree, the idea of a 200 to 1000 millimeter when we got the 200 to 800 millimeter doesn't make a lot of sense, so I'm going to discount that even though we found it as a lens embodiment within a recent Canon patent application. But the next one, now this one is, for any James Bond fan out there, you're going to love this. And what you want to do is, as you're listening to what I have to say, I want you to picture Q working for Canon. That should say it all, because this lens, well, it's definitely bold. And once again, guys, I'm not making this up. These are actually coming from Japanese patent applications filed by Canon and published recently. In Japanese patent application JP 2023 118490, Canon claims to solve this problem. A lot of space is needed to insert or retract a conversion lens, at least inside an optical device, which makes it very hard to keep the overall size of the device compact. Agreed. I mean, essentially this is very simple to understand. If we take something such as a teleconverter and we put this inside a lens, Well, we're going to make that lens a little bit bigger, and it's going to be hard to reduce and shrink the size because a lot of Canon patent applications over the past 3 years have been about reducing the number of components, reducing the size, and reducing the weight. All right, so now let's cue the cueness of this patent application. These patent diagrams illustrate a 50mm prime with a built-in teleconverter. That's right, folks. This allows a lens like a 50mm prime to also function as an 85mm prime, all in the same body. Do you recall a couple of weeks ago, I said that the Canon RF 50mm f1.2 was due for a refresh. It's about 7 years old now. But to put a teleconverter inside the 50mm f1.2, to turn it into, well, an 85mm f2.0, for example, to have both a 50mm and an 85mm in the same lens, that's bold. That's bizarre. I told you this was something that Q would come up with if he worked for Canon. Wow. I mean, this in itself, if it's an L series, if it's an f1.2 and an f2 for the 85mm, wow, that is bold. That's bolder than a 200 to 1000. That's bolder than a 200 to 800mm. That's just utterly wacky. And I want you to remember what my source said, that the next lenses will surprise people. And no doubt, putting some sort of teleconverter inside the 50mm f1.2, making it a version 2, giving us an 85mm in the same camera because of that built-in teleconverter where we can switch between 50 and 80, well, that's bonkers, isn't it? And it's just bonkers enough that it fits that whole surprise. It's within the patent applications, real patent applications, guys. And Canon rumors are saying we're getting a pair of f1.5s this year. So is it probable? Yeah, it's probable. But is it likely? No, it's bonkers. But you can see how I said it's something that Q would come up with if he worked for Canon. I think there's one other possibility, and that's a pair of tilt-shift lenses. If you recall, going all the way back to 2020, way back, Canon rumors put out a lens roadmap for 2020, and they updated it in 2024. And here it is here. Pretty well everything on this list, everything in green, is what's been released. Now the RF 35mm f1.2 hasn't come out. We got an f1.4 instead, but there's still a possibility that the f1.2 could still come out. But look there, under APS-C, under tilt shift, neither the 14mm f4 or the 24mm f3.5 have been delivered, announced, teased. Well, teased as of this video. And again, I don't have inside information. I wasn't able to get what type of lenses from my source Canon is planning to come out with that will surprise us. I mean, there's many different possibilities. When I went dumpster diving through the Japanese patent applications, I thought that 200 to 1000 sounded pretty wild and pretty exciting, just like that, what was it, a 2000mm prime that Canon was looking at too, also in the patent applications. But I thought the most bonkers one of all was the 50mm f1.2 with an 85mm in it. Now, if you follow that patent application, it doesn't reference 50mm by itself, but if you take a look at it, you can pretty well tell that based on the architecture, it looks to be a 50mm. So I'm really curious to see what we're going to get. I'm going to stay on top of things with my source, and hopefully in the next coming days and weeks, this video will help shake the rumor tree a little bit more. We'll get more information to tell you what surprise lenses, or what lenses Canon's planning on introducing that will surprise not just you, but me, because I want to be surprised as well. I also took a look to see what lenses are on sale to sort of get a hint. And when it came to that 50mm f1.2 version 2, the idea of that one, well, the one that we have right now, the f1.2, it's currently on sale for $100 off. Not a big deal, but it's on sale. And I took a look at the 85mm. It's not on sale. So again, there's really nothing justifying at least any sort of announcement soon related to that bonkers Q-designed 50mm with a built-in teleconverter. But you know, I know what you're thinking. Ryan's looking at me and wants to just smack me, but we've got all these patent applications for telephotos. I've got 2 of them myself. And you know, the idea of having a teleconverter, built-in teleconverter that allows us to switch between, obviously no teleconverter, to f1.4, f1.5, f1, or not f1, 1 times magnification, 1.4, 1.5. We've seen different patent applications. Some go 1.4, some go 1.5, some go up to 1.8, and some go to 2.0. That would be great. I really don't use the teleconverter much because when I'm out in the field, whatever I'm working with, if I have it in, I leave it in. If I don't have it in, I don't put it in. It's just really, really frustrating. So what do you think? Based on everything you've heard, based on your business, and what lens would really change how you work? And just completely think outside the box. Don't just think of focal length. Don't just think of aperture. Think of every possibility as to what Canon could do in a lens to surprise us, to surprise you. And who knows, maybe based on everything I see here, I'll go ahead and I'll put a poll out to see what most bonkers idea that Canon could potentially develop. And who knows, maybe you'll surprise Canon and give them an idea. But that's it for now, guys. I thank you so much for tuning in. If you're a big fan of this channel and you're watching to the end, you probably are, you might want to consider clicking that join button. I've introduced a few new membership options. The, what's it called? The Insider option. What that one does is, and I've already recorded a video, I got to go ahead and put it up later today or tomorrow, is I take you literally behind the scenes. I just basically shoot with the iPhone or whatever I've got to give you a bit of an idea of what's going on. Sometimes I might be out on a shoot and I'm thinking, you know, this would be a perfect story to tell my insider. So I try to put out at least one video a week. And then you've got the Shutterbug version where you get, what do you get? You get the camera emojis, and there's 5 of them representing the 5 top brands. And you also get loyalty badges. And so there's also a more expensive one, but that's for people who want to be able to call me, you know, any time of day, want to be able to talk for an hour or something like that, once a month or twice a month or something like that. But don't feel pressured that you have to. I'm just putting it out there for the 1% of the 1% that want to get more and they want to get behind the scenes. And you can also suggest stories, and we also do private live streams. And it's also a perfect opportunity to get you ready for an actual public live stream where you can be one of my guest speakers on the expert guest panel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you again soon. Oh, and one other thing too, if you do use any of my affiliate links down below, I do get a small commission back of anywhere from 2 to 5%. And literally that helps keeps the lights on. So I believe I have it disclosed in the comments, but just in case I don't, I want it to be audible. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day, and we'll see you again soon.